Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 112 of Reading Between the Reels, the premier podcast of shameless product placement. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please like, follow, and subscribe, and review us on iTunes or Spotify. You can also support the show by posting on your socials and joining our Facebook group. I am Justin Eldon, and I am here with Craig Dickinson. How you doing, Craig?
Great. I'm so excited to talk about this movie with you, Justin.
Me too. We are talking about the 2005 Fantastic Four today, and I think we both really enjoyed it. But I guess before we get into that, we can... what have you been watching this week, Craig?
So a couple things, rewatches mainly, since I finished Battlestar and still need to talk to Corey about that. I rewatched Chronicles of Riddick. For some reason, wanted to watch that. I watched Pitch Black a while back, and it's the second one. And holy smokes, there's a lot of Dutch angles in that movie, like a ridiculous amount. And like I remember liking that movie a whole lot more. I don't think it holds up very well. I got bored, but I did watch it. But something that does hold up that I really liked, rewatched Forrest Gump with the kids, and they freaking loved it. And my daughter was incredibly empathetic to it and just like, is this going to happen? And like, I can't tell you. But yeah, that movie's so good. It is such an epic movie and just an amazing performance by Tom Hanks. Really everybody. I love Gary Sinise in that movie so much. Great film. Soundtrack obviously is ridiculous. And that's, music way before I was born, but I still really enjoy the music and hearing those needle drops. And then the last thing, and I just watched this last night. I hadn't seen it, I don't think, maybe since it first came out, was A Simple Plan. I don't know if you've seen that, Justin, but it's 98.
I've heard of the band,
it's 98.
But I'm assuming not related.
It's Sam Raimi. So between Evil Dead and Spider-Man, he made it's an adaptation of a book, and it's one of your favorites, Bill Paxton. I say that tongue in cheek. Billy Bob Thornton plays his brother. Bridget Fonda's in it, and its basic premise is that these guys find a downed plane in Minnesota, and I think it's New Year's Eve or whatever, and there's like $4 million in cash, and what do they do with it? And it's got lots of good twists, and yeah, I highly recommend. Good taut thriller. So yeah, that's what I've been watching this week. What about you?
So the week prior, I had watched American Primeval on Netflix, and that got me going. I go through like phases where I get like really into like themes of certain movies.
Sure.
And I was really into like westerns and frontier type stuff. So I went back and watched, I think probably for the third or fourth time, Hatfield and McCoy, or Hatfield versus McCoy. I don't remember. Hatfield and McCoy's. Have you seen that, Craig?
I have not. Is this a series?
It is a series. It was originally on Netflix. I don't believe it's on Netflix anymore. I found it on the high seas, and it has my favorite Kevin Costner in there as kind of like the patriarch of a frontier family who's just. I guess it's not really the frontier anymore, but anyway, he just got back from the Civil War, and his old Civil War buddy friend, who happens to be Bill Paxton,
nice,
also comes back, and they come back and they kind of start a feud that spans several generations of his family, and it's based on real historical events, and it would appear from very quick online searches that it's fairly historically accurate, like for the most part. Like it adds some drama, obviously, but nothing too fake. But it's really, really well done, like really high production value. It takes a good long time, like developing the characters and like having you like love and care about the characters. And just really, it's a mini series. I think there's 6 episodes, and it spans a couple decades. Anyway. Really, really well done. Really like it. I've seen it a couple times, and every time I pick up something new, and just, man, like Kevin Costner found his calling too late in life doing westerns, because I feel like he didn't do a whole lot of those as young Kevin Costner, but now that's like all he's in. That's all he ever does. And no, it's really, really good. And then, so I watched that this week, and then I watched another Kevin Costner uh, Western-ish called Horizon, which is also on Netflix.
Yeah, the new one, right?
Is it new?
Yeah, the American Saga or whatever it is, something like that. Like Luke Wilson's
yeah,
in it too.
I didn't even see. Yeah,
It had a limited theatrical release, but yeah, I think that's the reason that he's not in the second half of, well, one of them that he's not in the second half of the 5th season of Yellowstone.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know how long it had been on Netflix. I didn't really check the date. I didn't love it as much. It was fine. Sometimes those westerns, the like costume design and people just look too clean.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, and it kind of pulls you out of the movie. Yeah, and everything just looked a little too nice. Things weren't dusty enough, and everything just seemed like someone had. It seemed like it was on a movie set. It didn't seem.
Oh, that's too bad.
Anyway,
I've heard
that's
some
a small
good things.
nitpick, but for me, it takes me out of it.
Yeah. So, quick question here. So, I think that I think you're onto something that he's kind of made a lot more westerns later. I mean, even Yellowstone's a modern western.
Yeah.
But didn't do a ton of them. But you said later in life. But I'm curious. Have you seen Silverado?
Not well enough.
Yeah.
No, basically,
So,
no.
yeah.
Yes, but not well enough to know.
Because that's him too. Like, and that's like I think 85. And so it's like he
85,
dipped his toe in, but then didn't really come back until Wyatt Earp maybe.
Maybe he just needed to be a gruff old man for that to work with him.
Yeah, I think that's probably more of it. He kind of has that persona now that he's a lot of that. So anyway, yeah, that's my plug for Silverado. I love that movie. That's one of my. That's definitely one of my favorite Western movies.
I'm gonna give that a watch.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think that's a genre that needs to make more of a comeback. Or westerns.
Yeah,
we had a little bit of one with like Hateful Eight, and then what was the one with Chris Pratt?
Oh yeah, like Magnificent Seven. They did they did a remake of that. Yeah, I mean even Django Unchained. I mean, there's been a handful of them, fairly recently. And it's interesting that you say that like Western as a genre because we do think of it that way. But Silverado versus like Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood are both Westerns, but also very, very different movies. Like in a lot of the same ways that superhero is not really a genre anymore because Ant-Man is a very different movie than like say Winter Soldier. You know what I mean? So like there's a lot more room. I think though, yes, the overall aesthetic of the Western is definitely something we could bring back and do different genre type of movies within that. So maybe
there's
aesthetic.
a genre and then like a genre.
I'd be up for that. Yeah. That sounds good.
Okay, we're gonna start our own movie studio here, Craig, and we're gonna
I think there's definitely an audience for that for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, we are doing Fantastic Four, the 2005 release, as we're kind of doing the Marvel movies pre-MCU. And Craig, what are like overall thoughts of that movie? How you feel about it?
So I really, really like this movie, and I think that it holds up really well. I always love to look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores because that wasn't a thing. And like in 2005, nobody knew what Rotten Tomatoes was. If it even existed, nobody really cared. But it has a 28% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is ridiculous. It's like one of the site's critical consensus reads, quote, marred by goofy attempts at wit, subpar acting, and bland storytelling, Fantastic Four is a mediocre attempt to bring Marvel's oldest hero team to the big screen. Like, whatever, dude. It's fun. And I watched the original version, and then there's also an extended version, which I'll talk about from time to time. And I watched the director's commentary with that. And it actually had Kevin Feige on there as well, and a couple of the writers. And it was cobbled together. You could tell they weren't all sitting in the room. But one thing they talked about too was context. I mean, it's 2005, and this is the summer of Batman Begins and Revenge of the Sith. So there are a couple of very dark films that came out earlier, and this is not that. And so they were talking about how especially Batman, that some of the response to this film was, and Daredevil had previously come out like the year before. This was light and fun and very bright, and things are kind of on a pendulum. They swing back and forth, and so some of the negative backlash for this film may have been due to that.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit more conditioned to kind of expect either one at the theaters right now.
Yep.
I think the MCU has kind of given us the lighthearted, comedic superhero movies that we all like, and then we're also totally willing to see something like The Joker, which is quite a bit, darker and grittier, but audiences appreciate both.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway with this is I think that it doesn't take itself too seriously. The movie doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does treat its characters with respect. That's my biggest. The characterizations are so, and you and I talked about this off mic, are so good in this. I fully understand and appreciate each of the 4 very different characters. I feel they've completely fleshed out. I know who they are almost instantly.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if you think about like the MCU, it took the MCU a long time to get to the point where they could put all of the Avengers on screen, and you felt like those Avengers were all fleshed out. And this movie fleshes those characters out very quickly, puts them up into a somewhat of a team. Like I believe they're in the spacecraft like 8 minutes into the movie already working together. Mm-hmm. Like 8 minutes in, all those characters have already been introduced in a way that you already know their dynamic. And it does an incredible job. And to me, it did not feel rushed. Like it felt well timed and paced pretty well. I think the third act gets a little sloppy with the pacing, but not too bad. But yeah, it's impressive how quickly they were able to establish those characters.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out here too is in the commentary. So it's written by, the screenplay is by Mark Frost, who's a guy who did a lot of TV, did Hill Street Blues, Twin Peaks, and Michael France, who did, we've seen him earlier. He wrote The Punisher, the 2004 one we covered, and also Hulk, Cliffhanger, and Goldeneye. But both of those guys gave serious props to Stan Lee and Steve Ditko for their original characterizations of these characters. That they basically said these characters were so well drawn before we even got there that all we really had to do was try and replicate that. So it also speaks to the strength of how well these characters were, when they were originally created.
Probably the casting quite a bit too, because
yeah,
I think all of those characters. I'm kind of back and forth on Victor Von Doom, but
yeah,
at least the Fantastic Four, those were all cast really, really well. Chris Evans as Johnny Storm is just amazing, and we can probably talk about that more later in the podcast. But yeah, they all just do a great job. Jessica Alba was fine. I think she was probably the weakest of the 4, but she still did.
Yeah, she's the most stunt-casty of them, I think. The one that doesn't quite fit.
Yeah, and she's the one more so than like the CGI. Because the CGI is slightly dated. I mean, it's 2005. It's going to be dated. But you can really date the movie mostly, I think, by how they portrayed Jessica Alba and kind of like objectify her. You wouldn't see that in a modern movie, especially with like the suits. Like when they first put on their suit, they're all skin tight suits. I mean, that makes sense. That's comic accurate. They all go up to their necks, but like Jessica Alba's is super low cut. I'm like, why? Why is that one low cut? And why are the other ones all the way up to the neck? And then by the end of the movie, it's no longer low cut. It goes up to her neck. But it's the same I'm confused. Did she just not zip it up all the way? I don't know.
That's a good catch. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to talk about before we dig into cinematography?
No, I'm excited to like dig into this though. It's good stuff.
I said just one last thing, that because I know we're both fans of The Boys, and so I love that's all in some ways is, I don't want to say derivative, but it is kind of a takeoff of this whole concept of celebrity superheroes. And that was, this is a thing that they don't have secret identities. They're very public celebrities. And that's, I think it was a different concept at the time, and especially when they were created originally in a comic book, and even when in this film, that they don't have masks, everybody knows who they are, and they're very public. And so making that connection to, we could take that, and then we have this public persona versus this very different reality, which we see like with Homelander and such. So I thought that was kind of fun to see that it still is, that concept has inspired some later iterations.
Yeah, I remember when this movie when it first came out, I believe it came out at the same time as The Incredibles.
Yeah, right.
Am
I think they're in
misremembering
production about the same. Yeah, because I remember The Incredibles had a trailer for Revenge of the Sith, so I think it was like the year before, but they were in like production like
Yeah,
right around the same time.
and I absolutely adore The Incredibles. It's
Yeah,
like one
great
of my
movie.
favorite movies. And I just remember comparing this and Incredibles, and at the time I'm just like, Incredibles is so much better. Fantastic Four is trash, but like they don't need to be compared. Obviously, they're different films, although surprisingly similar. Like in terms of like Syndrome would be Victor Von Doom, and then you got the family, and they got all similar powers for the
Yeah,
most part.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, I think that would probably be more of an apt comparison if audiences are watching at the time, more so than against, Batman or
yep,
other darker superhero films.
yeah. This is very much a comic book movie that knows it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So composition, color, camera work. What kind of things did you see that you liked, appreciated, got meaning from?
So it's kind of a fun mess, right? um, it's bright, it's vibrant, they do a good job of the color, but then other times it's like they're trying to be dark and gritty, like the tone shifts a little bit, and some of that is Victor Von Doom, right? Like you want to have this dark tonal shift with Doom. He is the bad guy, but it doesn't always mix in such a way that, like, I guess the darkness of Doom, when juxtaposed, look at that word,
Nice.
against the bright campiness of the Fantastic Four, doesn't work super well sometimes.
Yeah.
But if it's just like Fantastic Four on the screen, they do a great job. I did think it was weird with how bright the film was overall, and like how saturated a lot of the colors were, that the costumes weren't brighter. Like
Yeah.
they were a very, very dark blue.
That's a good pull. Yep.
Could have lightened those up just a little bit. There was one particular scene, kind of when Victor is trying to emotionally manipulate Ben. Right, he meets him in the diner, and the diner is very like dark and gritty and gross. And there was a lot of green light like shining on Victor, which I thought was really cool. Obviously, like foreshadowing the transformation into Doctor Doom, which is a very green colored outfit. What about you?
So first off, I want to ask: have you seen the extended version?
I did not have time.
Okay. Well, this is, again, another plug for Movies Anywhere. If you already have this movie, you have the extended version if you watch it on Movies Anywhere. And the first thing is that there's this it's long. I have to say that, but it's great. They have this title sequence because this movie, the theatrical one, just jumps right in really quick, gives you the title, and then there's that shot of the statue, right, of Victor that's being built almost immediately. It's really quick that jumps in there. But there's like the 2-minute long sequence. It's very highly stylized, very comics-ish. It reminds me a lot of like the Spider-Man 2 intro, where you get like basically over every actors in there. There's like a little tableau of them doing something related to their personality. You get to see like Ben as an astronaut and stuff, and some earlier stuff. Great stuff but it's long, and so I would love people to check that out and see what could have been. They essentially cut it for time. But some specific things other than that I really liked. The first time we get to meet Victor, where he's sitting in shadows, and there's a practical reason for that, right? Because there's a presentation, like Reed is doing the thing with a hologram, whatever. But I just love little bits like that where, he's enveloped in shadows because his true nature is hidden, and, we don't really know his agenda. And I think that's pretty cool. I love that you talked about the bright colors. Like, yeah, almost everything is bright except for their suits. That was great. I think my favorite things that I like, camera work and cinematography things, are the very slow reveal of Ben Grimm as the Thing. I think that was done.
Oh yeah,
amazingly. I like the first person thing, like when he hasn't quite changed, and you just see him, like, it's from his perspective looking at Johnny, and he's like, we did everything we could, and you're assuming it's going to be him, and then you see it's not, and all this. We just see like the effects of things more than anything.
Well, we get the fun fake out of he didn't actually transform into the thing, but then we also get a great bit of characterization for Johnny of this guy's kind of a jerk. Like
Johnny is an a-hole. Yeah. So you get both things. And then they have, which I don't know if you noticed this, but I really thought that some of the story beats, but also some of the scenes with Victor and his company very much aped. I'm going to use that instead of ripped off Norman Osborn and from the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire.
Like beat for beat,
right?
That man is Norman Osborn. Yeah,
darn it, Craig. Same kind of thing.
You took my thing.
But they have. But what's cool though is that in that scene where they told him his company's being taken from him, they have a dolly zoom, which is always cool to see. Like the camera pulls away, but also zooms in at the same time, which is very off-putting, and it's uncomfortable as he's uncomfortable and he's kind of freaking out. And
is that what that's called?
Yeah, the dolly zoom.
Camera pulls away while it zooms in.
Yeah. Which is
one of my favorite shots in cinema, and I never knew what it was called until this moment.
It's the vertigo.
It's like
move.
the effect of standing up too fast and like the blood rushes to your head. That's what it feels like.
It's in Jaws. It's Lord of the Rings very famously aped that as well. But great scene. But I'm also like, I've seen this somewhere before. And even he doesn't quite say, "Do you realize what I've sacrificed?" But it's basically that.
The boardroom is set up almost identically. He gets a second opinion from a doctor, chokes him, throws him across the room, and kills him by doing so. Same thing.
Back to formula? Yeah,
back to formula, and it's like it's not broke, don't fix it. But maybe just change some stuff so it doesn't look like direct copying.
It's like I've seen all of these movies. I don't know how many times, like double digits, easy, before watching them for the show, and I've never noticed that for some reason, but. This time through, I was just like, huh, that's weird.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
even kills the board member, just like Goblin kills a board member. And
he cribbed. Yeah, very much so. It's like that Mr. Bean meme. Yeah. But yeah, that's the main thing I had for composition. Camera work.
Some of the shots, I wanted to talk about the bridge scene, which is probably one of the, I think, that's an amazing one. There weren't a lot of really inspiring shots on that bridge scene. Like the camera is very static that entire time, even during some of the action sequences. And of course, we get the great action sequence where Ben stands in front of the semi and hits him and wraps around him, which I think has been done in I don't know half a dozen superhero movies.
Yeah.
I think Hancock did it, and The Boys did it in episode 1. Smallville, I think, did it at some point. I was trying to think if there was anything before this movie that I remember the shot of the superhero stopping a car like that happening, and I think this might have been the first one. Yeah. But I'm not sure.
There was one or two things in that scene, though. I mean, you do have when the fire truck goes over and then the ladder extends, and then you get the extreme low angle looking up at Reed grabbing him, which I thought was pretty immersive and a great way to do that. And I mean, that definitely shows how bad the CGI is there. And they talked about this at length in the commentary, how hard it was to do. That was for them. They said this is the hardest one, and ultimately it is what it is.
What specifically his stretching?
The stretchiness of showing stretchy skin. And then there's another great sequence too. I think and I buy it. The scene where the first time where he reaches under the door and there's that tracking shot of him going all the way through, which it looks like a hand. It looks like as much as what a rubbery hand would look like. I love the way that the camera goes down to the floor and then follows the hand. And again,
whenever I see bad CGI on stuff that isn't in real life, I just think, maybe that's what that looks like. We don't know what rubbery, stretchy skin looks like. Maybe it looks like bad CGI.
Give him some grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think if you take out Reed Richards, because Human Torch, he looks great.
Yeah, agreed.
The Thing is practical effects. And then Sue Storm, her abilities look pretty good. I mean, the rest of it's pretty solid. It's really just Mr. Fantastic where it's a little noticeable.
That was my note as well. And I just had to double check. Yeah, Hancock's 2008. So this might be the first time that you mentioned the stop in the truck. So with Ben in the middle.
Well, I wonder when Smallville did it. was what I can look that up later, but
Yeah.
Smallville might have done it first.
So might
actually.
have been Smallville first. So anything else on visuals before we talk about sound?
No, I do feel like visuals, like that topic kind of blends in with everything else, so I'm sure we'll circle back to it eventually.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned how much I like what they don't show you or they just hint at with Ben. I also liked his stomach churning, like right before we have the transformation. That rumbling sound is, I think, a really cool foreshadowing as well. It's like there's rocks rolling around.
Sounds like he's about to like crap out a ton of bricks.
Yes. All the thumping sounds is him walking, and then we get a Wilhelm scream during the final battle, and I was like, "Is that?" Yeah, and I had to go back.
2.
Oh, there's 2. I have to
2.
Nice.
Yeah, I was the first Wilhelm. They happen within probably 3 or 4 minutes of each other, but the first one happens, and I'm like, I got to make note of that. And then as I'm making a note, another one happens. Like, what? Oh my, 2? Crazy.
Yeah. Well, the first one I heard was buried in the mix pretty good. It was like it showed a shot of Sue, and then it was that, and so yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah, cars and stuff are flying around when we hear another one, so it's real close.
Nice.
I think just overall, I think the heart of this movie. I mean, it's a Fantastic Four movie. You could probably expect it be about Mr. Fantastic and Reed Richards, but I think it's Ben. Ben is really the main character here, and everything kind of revolves around him. And I think, well, it's funny. We were just talking with one of our friends, Andrew, who's been on the show before when we covered Lord of the Rings, and we just brought up that we're doing Fantastic Four today, and first thing he said was like, "Oh man, the practical effects on the Thing weren't very good." And Craig and I are both like, "What?
What are you talking
about? We loved those."
Yeah, that suit is.
I thought he looked really, really good. Like the fact that they can get so much expression with such like a limited facial movements, I guess, and then I guess bring it back to sound, but like the sounds he makes constantly, like the rocks grinding against each other, and you can just tell his mood by the way he's walking, like his stride, how fast or how slow the thumping is, and how powerful it is. It was really, really well done, and I don't know if like we have another Fantastic Four movie coming out this year, next year. I don't know.
Late this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're going to be able to like live up to this one in terms of the Thing.
Yeah.
Because I imagine they'll probably go with CGI and not practical effects.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way they'll go. But yeah, just to kind of add on to that, that we have, we'll talk about the music, I'm sure, a lot. But like one thing that I liked with the size of Ben that they did really well was like there's a song called Error Operator by Taking Back Sunday, which skips when he enters the bar. Every step he takes, it kind of skips a little bit, and like that's a cool way just to be like, this dude is huge. I love that like, it's showing, not telling. So I thought that was kind of fun.
I think a little bit of a missed opportunity in this film. And to be fair, I think Doctor Doom is a really hard character to portray on screen because he doesn't technically have powers in the comics. He's more of like an Iron Man figure almost, where he's just incredibly intelligent and like dabbles in sorcery.
Man. Huh, interesting.
Huh, weird. Robert Downey Jr.
But yeah, no, I know that's.
But
yeah, keep going.
They give him like a very basic electricity power, and I feel like it was just wasted opportunity to just have it be an electric sound. Like I guess I wanted more than just Emperor Palpatine, In terms of sound, they could have stuck with the electricity. Maybe they wanted to keep it simple for the audience or whatever, but just the straight electric sound wasn't cool. They could have gone with something otherworldly. I don't know. Doctor Doom all around for me was a little bit of a disappointment in this film. But
yeah, I there's some of it about him I like. I love and we'll get to it, but I love the costume. But I will say that like his voice, the timbre of his voice is just too high for me for a lot of it. It's just, I wish he had a little bit of a lower voice, lower register.
Oh, you liked the costume?
I thought it was great. Especially in the scene where they get, we'll get to that when he has Reed hostage on like frozen and stuff. But what I think I do really like about this though is The main title, I think, is really, really solid. John Ottman, who we've seen before, worked with Bryan Singer a lot, did X2 and some other movies that we've done. I thought like it's heavy horns. It's very heroic. It's not overly complicated. We hear it a lot, and I just think that's an inspiring superhero theme.
Yeah, it does well. I can't for the life of me remember it in between watches.
Yeah,
so I don't know if it's like my meter for like iconic is how well it sticks in my head.
Sure.
And this one does not, but I did recognize during the film itself. I'm like, yeah, this is fitting. I like it. Some of the other like the background tracks that are going on almost feel like they were generic stock placeholders, and then they just like never got around to updating them. They're like, we'll just stick with like the the stock music that they give us on our free trial of this video editor or something. And it
are you talking about like the pop music or the orchestral stuff?
The orchestral, the
non-words stuff.
I'm gonna do this. Orchestral.
There you go.
Orchestral.
Yeah,
I did it.
You did it.
The orchestral stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is continuing that trend too. That this is another. There's Fantastic Four the album. There's another Wind Up Records album. But we have a few different things. Well, I mean, we have Velvet Revolver is back. Velvet Revolver, who is a supergroup of Scott Weiland, and some guys from Guns N' Roses, and they did a song for the Hulk movie, and they did a song called "Come In, Come On," which is what the song you hear on Johnny's introduction, which is a fantastic introduction. Like, I loved everything about that character, like him riding the motorcycle and leaning over for a kiss, and the girl who's driving the car, and this rock music is going.
How quickly does that guy get characterized, right?
Yeah, immediately.
Like the first scene,
perfect song.
He's doing
choice.
something stupid and dangerous on a motorcycle while kissing a girl that he just rides away from, like his non-committal, dangerous lifestyle and womanizer, like all right in one shot.
Yeah, take about 10 seconds, and I know who that guy is. Same thing with there's a song called "Newts" by Sum 41 when he's on the mountain. Same kind of deal. Like this, you immediately know who this guy is. He's very rock and roll. He's the epitome of that. But we also have, one thing that I guess I'm going to try and be even-handed as much as I can. There's a song called "Bang Back to the Rock and Roll." I don't know how to pronounce the group, Gabin or Gabin. There's like a power montage where that's like the pranks happening, and you see like Reed getting a roll of toilet paper from across the wall. I enjoy that scene, but it is also kind of tonally wacky. It's maybe out of place. It's like they're kind of figuring out where this film fits with that. I mean, I don't know. How'd you feel about that montage?
I don't know. Montages always take me out of films because I'm aware that they're a montage, and then I start noticing that it's a montage. Then I think about all the montage tropes that Rick and Morty have made fun of, or a bunch of films have made fun of montages. It was fine.
Yeah,
but I feel like we don't do as many montages in films anymore. That's like a very early 2000 thing.
Yeah, I think that's my main thing too. It's like, oh, now it's a montage, and I'm taking the taken out thing. I think that's a good way to put that.
You know what I felt was strange? Okay, so all of the characters have their little sounds when they're using their powers. Mr. Fantastic, you have like the rubbery sound, and then Ben, you have the rock grinding, the electricity for Doctor Doom. Johnny Storm has like a really cool sound when he ignites, and he says like the flame on, which gives me chills when he does it for the first time. Sue Storm, when she turns invisible, I don't believe that there's any sound. No sound.
I'm trying to think if there was like a ringing.
Might be wrong,
something?
but I tried listening for it.
Like there is with the force field when she pushes that, though.
Yeah,
right?
The force field. There's definitely a sound,
but
no
getting
audio cues for the invisibility, which is fine. It's a small nitpick, but I just thought that was odd. Like other movies with invisibility, they definitely have like a
shimmering effect or something. Yeah, no.
Yeah, There was nothing.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else on sound before we focus on performance?
There's so much to talk about with performance.
Yeah.
I already talked about Doctor Doom and the disappointing electricity sound, which is, I don't know, again, another nitpick. It's fine.
Yeah.
No. That should be about it.
So here's the big question. With the dialogue that you pulled, did you have any that wasn't Johnny Storm?
I don't.
Because I had one. I'm looking, I'm like, they're all Johnny. But I do have one that's not.
I have at the very end when after Reed proposes to Sue,
yeah,
and then they kiss, and she's like, "No, silly, that's my nose." It's like, you're invisible, dummy. What'd you expect? Like,
yeah, give the man some.
You're gonna
help.
turn invisible and then get mad when this guy doesn't know where your lips are?
Yeah.
Jeez. Anyway,
early in the film, Reed and Ben they have this back and forth, which I look again, characterization. You get to know who those guys are within like the first 30 seconds. They outside of the statue or whatever, but later on they're about to like get on the spacecraft, and Reed says, "How many times have I ever asked you to do something that you said you absolutely could not do?" And he says, 5 times.
5.
He's like, I had
Doesn't
it
even
4.
finish the sentence.
Well, this makes 5. Oh, let's love that. Yeah, exactly. Cuts him off 5 times. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not mad. He's
Johnny,
just like, this is true.
Yep. And those two have really good chemistry.
Yeah.
With each other. Right off the bat. Like, it is believable that they are, even though they're very different people, it's believable that they're longtime friends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so are we doing characterization or dialogue right now?
Yeah, either.
Well, characters. Can we just talk about Ben Grimm's? Is it his fiance, his girlfriend, or wife? It's
his fiance, and I had to look this up, and then also in the commentary they talked about this, and they also talked about at length that if you don't care about Ben, then you won't care about this movie. And so there was a definite emphasis on what you mentioned earlier, like how great, like he is kind of the central character, and that's why this movie works.
I hate his wife, girlfriend, fiance. I hate her. I hate her so much. And a lot of that probably comes from I hated her in The Walking Dead.
Sure.
And I also hated her in The Mist.
Also true, yeah.
She is just the worst character in every movie she's in. But this one, it's like they're obviously in this very committed relationship.
Yes.
And then the first time she sees him, which is, first off, who walks out of their house in New York wearing that outfit? Like, she's dressed kind of for, like, sexy times.
Yeah. It's very odd.
And, like, who walks outside like that? Anyway, and she's just immediately terrified, which, okay, maybe that's a little scary. But then to, like, dump the guy and, like, take off your ring and just, like, set it down
on the ground.
Like,
yeah.
You're not even going to, like, try and figure out what's wrong or, like, say, hey, can we fix this? Or nothing.
Nope.
Like, what an awful lady. I hope she almost got hit by a car. Car should have finished the job. Should have just kept going.
That's such a great scene, like awful, but great scene though. Watching him trying to pick that up, it's brutal where he can't reach it.
Yeah. It was Spider-Man 3 does like a very similar thing with Sandman, right?
Yes.
Where right after Sandman comes out, he goes for the locket and he can't grab it.
Oh yeah.
Which is also a really, really good scene.
We'll be talking about that soon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you got, again, more good characterization. Like, Reed comes up and picks it up for him, and at that point, Reed's like, "I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna like double my efforts here, and
yeah,
get this back for you."
I'm gonna pull one of my many Johnny quotes. His sister says, "There's so many. I just picked this one though." "Johnny, you're at 4,000 Kelvin. Any hotter, and you're approaching supernova." He goes, "Sweet." "No, not sweet. That's the temperature of the sun." And then Reed says, "Not only could you kill yourself, but you could set fire to Earth's atmosphere and destroy all human life as we know it." Got it. Supernova, bad. He's convinced, and then 2 thumbs up. He's like, I'm good. But just what a... I don't understand consequences, sir. No. No, you do not.
Is what makes me sad, and again, we've talked about this, but when Chris Evans was first cast as Captain America, I was so distraught because I was like, no, he's so good
Me too.
as Johnny Storm. Like, if you cast him as Captain America, he's not going to be Johnny Storm. And this might be a mean take, but I think Captain America could have been played by quite a few actors. I don't feel like that role would be too difficult, but I don't think Johnny Storm can be played by too many actors. I definitely think he was more built for the Johnny Storm role.
Yeah.
More so than Captain America. Not that I'm upset with the Captain America casting, although I did have a really hard time with him as Captain America for a long time because I'm like, no, that guy's a douchebag. Like that doesn't work as Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Steve Rogers is a good guy.
Yeah. It really does. Watching those back to back, you really see Chris Evans's range. It's actually pretty good. He's a good actor.
If any of you have seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is
a
fantastic movie, one of my favorites, he is a great character in there, much more akin to Johnny Storm.
Yeah.
But he's really funny in that movie.
Yeah,
he does a good job in Knives Out too.
Yeah,
Man,
I was going to say
good.
Knives Out might be. Well, I do love his Steve Rogers, but he is so magnetic in Knives Out. Just yeah.
Oh, and you know what? That other movie that Corey just loves.
The Gray Man, yes.
Gray Man.
Horrible
he
movie.
Does a great job.
He's Lloyd. He is fantastic. He is the best part of that movie by far. So he plays a good bad guy.
Great villain in Gray Man.
Sorry, Corey, but yeah,
Corey, we love you, but
we miss you. But that movie's
not
trash.
a good movie.
But please, by all means, listen to our episode talking about that.
Or don't. It's not a good.
Some
entertaining. Anyway,
some other things about Johnny in this, though. Well, I think we talked about this one too. Earlier in the film, where Ben goes out into he puts him in the suit, and Johnny's the one that closes the door on him, and then he salutes him, and then right into 2 thumbs up. It's like a salute into 2 thumbs up because he takes absolutely nothing seriously.
Yeah, I liked the part too with let me find it. When Johnny and Ben first interact. And he says $259 for digital camera, $59 for a memory stick.
That dates the film quickly.
Funny, but just the pricing of a digital camera and a memory stick, and nobody even buys digital cameras anymore, and memory sticks are way cheaper. That's another kind of dated the movie a bit.
But yeah, the look on your former CEO's face, priceless. Which is also it's a reference to a credit card commercial from early 2000s as well. So that whole bit it's MasterCard. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if younger generations would recognize those lines.
I doubt it.
I forgot that was kind of a saying of that era.
Yeah. Back when we used to watch commercials. So
I'm going to have to ask kids tomorrow, see if they know.
You talked a little bit, or at least alluded to your thoughts on Doom's costume. So we're kind of to that point now. So I really would like to hear what your thoughts are on that.
It just seemed, I don't know. I don't like this idea where he just he turns metallic. And I don't think it looked very good, especially his hands. It kind of just, and maybe in watching the director commentary, you know more about this than I do, but his hands didn't look like there were prosthetics put on them or makeup or anything on his hands to make them look metallic. They looked like somebody put a thick glove over his hands because he looked very clumsy in the way he was gripping stuff and his movements of his hands. And then the rest of the metallic body, he just looked like some really, discount version of the T800 or something. I just wasn't a fan. And then the helmet, he puts on the helmet and he kind of loses all expression. Not that actor did a great job with expression to begin with, but like you really only saw his eyes after
Yeah.
he puts on the helmet, and his voice was not like deep or threatening enough to even sound menacing while wearing the helmet. So like if you're gonna wear a helmet and lose all expression, you need, you know, the voice acting to pull through. Kind of like with Ben. Like Ben doesn't have a lot of expression, but his voice acting like makes up for it.
Yeah.
And
they altered the voice for Ben
Doom,
and not for him, so that's an interesting choice too.
Yeah, they did. They did. It didn't. I don't know. I feel like it didn't do anything to like portray the character in a better way or like progress the character's, I guess, presence in the film. The hood looked cool at times. He didn't wear it for super long. He only had it for like part of the scene, really, like when he's kind of taunting Mr. Fantastic when he's got him frozen. I don't know. It didn't really do it for me.
Yeah. I think just something just occurred to me. So I think that first off, there's a practical reason for the uniforms for the Fantastic Four, which I liked a lot. And I loved how they, again, go kind of back to the Incredibles, the fact that they're wearing those suits while they're hit by the storm is why that those suits are, they have to continue to wear them, right? Because like that's the only suit that Johnny can wear without burning up. That's the only suit that Reed can wear that stretches. Those kind of things, right? So there's a very practical reason for that. But Victor's costume is not practical, other than like we see hints that he's really vain about like the scar on his face, and so he'd want to wear a mask, and then they have this mask that somehow is a gift from the people of Latveria. But the rest of it, with the hood and like the whatever the circles on the cape and whatever, from comic, I mean, I've not read a lot of Fantastic Four comics, but I'm knowing that he's into like sorcery and stuff like that kind of fits that motif. You know what I mean? So there doesn't seem to be a whole
but they
lot
didn't hint at any of the sorcery stuff.
That's what I mean. For in this film, there's really not a practical reason for him to have thrown on a hood and have this very kind of imperialistic, magical. Yeah. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Doctor Strange's outfit, a little bit. Whereas the other ones, it was like, this is why they're wearing these suits. And
but you like his costume. So
I like that it looked like the comics, but I'm having this conversation with you and appreciating how much effort went into, this is why the Fantastic Four in this movie wear these outfits. It's not like, hey, this just look cool. It's like, we kind of have to, versus now I've just have this very theatrical, because it looks cool, but beyond that, there's not a rational explanation for it.
I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and kind of at the start of this episode when I talked about Westerns, but the costume design is like a huge thing for me in movies. Like it'll easily make or break a movie for me. And something I love about the MCU is they do give you a practical reason for, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of a couple of the heroes, but off the top of my head, almost every hero has like a practical reason for why their costume looks and acts the way it does. I mean, even Captain America, whose costume doesn't really do a whole lot, his is, it's a symbol, right? Like he explains that.
Well, I'm even thinking just to kind of
there for,
to jump on that just real fast. I know I'm going to interrupt you and want you to continue your thought, but like the first Thor movie, right? Like he's wearing the helmet, but it's like a coronation where he's wearing that helmet and he never wears it again because the reason for that helmet, which is comic accurate, that doesn't exist later on, and so the helmet doesn't get worn either. Yeah,
MCU does a great job of doing that. Like, this is the purpose for this outfit. If it looks ridiculous, we're going to give you an in-world, in-universe explanation. But most of the time, the costumes in the MCU don't look ridiculous. They look really good. But they still stay pretty close to, like, comic accuracy. And like you said, they did that really well with the core Fantastic Four team. This is why they have to wear the suits, because it turns invisible, it stretches, it doesn't burn up. But yeah, Doctor Doom just kind of seems mushed together.
There's even a reason for the graying of Reed's temples. Even that like is explained in universe, and that for some reason, it's not with Doom. And this is the part where I also have to think about with hair and stuff. I'm like, that's the one thing that does take me out a little bit. That Jessica Alba's blonde hair and the blue contact lenses. That's where you get into a little bit of the stunt casting. Like, she's popular at the time, but she doesn't necessarily look like you could have gone. I think we would have been like we already had Michael Clark Duncan playing Kingpin. Like we could have just cast her and it would have been fine. But like we kind of went halfway and didn't really get a blonde blue-eyed actress, but we got one and made her blonde and blue-eyed, and it's like, I mean, it didn't take me out of the film, but I'm also just aware of that. That's a thing that's happening.
Yeah, the first time I saw this movie when I was much younger, I didn't know who Jessica Alba was. So that didn't bug me at all. Like I just thought that's what Jessica Alba looked like. But then I remember watching the second Fantastic Four movie, which we will go over shortly. Well, not today, but next couple podcasts. And her hair goes super blonde in that one. I think it looks pretty terrible. But yeah, this one didn't draw me out too much.
Yeah. Well, I had seen she was on a show James Cameron produced and created called Dark Angel that was on early 2000s, and so I had seen her in that for a while, and that was with her natural dark hair and dark eyes, and so it was they're cast her in this movie because she's becoming a bigger star, and Sin City and whatnot. This is her look, and now they've got her because she's the it girl, but now they're gonna make her fit into this paradigm. So that was for me. That was my experience.
I haven't seen a lot of movies with Jessica Alba in it. In fact, I can't think of any other movie I have seen with her in it. But I don't think she did a great job acting in this one. A lot of times when she was like using her powers, it seemed very, very fake. And then a lot of her lines were just kind of delivered a little oddly, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I hated, I don't know, like I said, it's a movie of 2005. This wouldn't happen to movies today. So when they're on the bridge and they're like, by the way, why is everyone on that bridge? We have all four characters on the bridge and his wife, girlfriend, fiance, all there at the same time. But when they're all on the bridge, that's such a popular bridge. Holy cow. When they're on the bridge, they're like, oh no, we can't get past this police barricade. What are we going to do? Hey, why don't you turn invisible to get past everyone? But we're just going to run ahead. Like, you guys can just run ahead just fine. Why does she have to turn invisible and like take her clothes off? Like, oh, that's so 2005.
You just answered the question. For both of those reasons.
So the movie can happen.
That's pretty much it. So we can show her invisible.
No, but you actually see them in the next scene.
I know.
You see Reed and Johnny running off to the side, like past the fire truck.
What did she accomplish? Nothing.
Why didn't she run off to the side past the fire truck? What's going on?
So the movie can happen. Yeah. No, that's a good point. That you watch that with later on eyes and perspective, and you're like, huh, weird.
Trends change.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yeah.
Sorry, back on track here. I'm gonna make fun of Doom a little bit more here. I didn't like the guy's voice acting a whole lot. It was a little, I don't know. He didn't sound menacing.
Yeah, it's too high for me.
And then when he transforms into Doom, like the full transformation, puts on the mask, that would have been a wonderful opportunity to change that guy's voice. Give him like a metallic sounding voice.
Yes.
If you think about like quotable lines from popular movie villains, you got Darth Vader, you got Bane, like these villains that have memorable voices that people still repeat to this day. Do you know how many times I put my hands on my kids' shoulders and say, "Do you feel in charge?"
Yeah.
Like all the time.
Exactly.
If he didn't have a weird voice, I wouldn't have said that. Thanks, Bane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Doctor Doom could have done a voice, or they could have, changed
just
that
to
voice.
Run it through a filter. That's kind of a weird choice.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't have been too hard.
Okay.
Is he in the second one? I don't recall.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the second one, everybody's back, plus the Silver Surfer. Andre Brower's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely back.
Okay.
Well, they hint at. I mean,
I
they
haven't
have
seen that movies.
There's it's a mid-credit scene, which because we haven't quite committed to the post-credit scene motif yet. We've had one, I think, so far. Just the Blade one is the only one we've had so far. Mm-hmm. Full post-credit. And the next one will, though. Last Stand has a post-credit scene, but we'll talk about that next time. Setting and design, I will go ahead and move down there. Filmed mainly in and around Vancouver, but with some establishing shots of New York. Like that bridge is a set, which is fantastic. How they did that. That's a lot of green screen. The Baxter Building is a building called the Marine Building, which is it's kind
in
of
Vancouver.
Yeah, it's in Vancouver, and some of the things they talked about was in the commentary was like the elevator, for instance, like has the stars on the outside and the inside. Like they didn't do they didn't have to make that. That's the way that building came. It's an Art Deco building, and like the building in the comics is Art Deco. And it's just like whoever the location scout was, like, nice job, because that just lined up perfectly.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That is fantastic. Speaking of the Baxter building, Jerry, the doorman.
Yep.
He just gets blasted by Dr. Doom.
So mean.
For just saying hello, and he gets like thrown out the front door. Poor Jerry, man.
Yeah.
Like, I need justice for Jerry. I'm gonna start a campaign.
Justice for Jerry. Some other things that I really, I love the Baxter building. I love the circular lab that Reed has. Like, I wanted to pause it and just see all of that. There was so much there. But one thing that I think I liked even more was Victor's building, which we get to see at the beginning, is covered in like green gray metal sheeting and rivets. Like, it is like that's production design. They didn't find that building, but it is absolutely. Hey, this is Dr. Doom's lair. Like, I mean, look at it. Look at the colors. Look at the motif.
Well, and the obvious foreshadowing right at the beginning too, when they walk up to the building and they're watching that statue get made of very metallic Victor Von Doom, and it's like, oh, okay, a little heavy-handed, guys. Well, but sure.
One of the writers said he had a point about that too. He's like, he said, speaking of missed opportunities, it was that Victor's final pose it could have, but didn't quite end up in that same exact pose, and how cool that would have been.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think about that, but that would have been amazing.
I did think that was weird. His final pose was a nothing burger. Like, they could have done. They could have made him look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a strut that was intentionally hiding his nethers. I mean, thank goodness. Nobody wants to see that. It's PG-13. So
yeah, but having it be in that same pose would have been pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, that would have been great.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Bingo.
Yeah. Props. I already talked about the ring. I wanted to talk about that. That was fantastic. That whole symbol. That scene there.
So sad.
You know what I think one of my favorite props in this, and because it's a small subtle effect, but I think it's genius, and also talks about characterization, is the Jiffy Pop thing, where Johnny just like grabs that and he's just walking around and it's pop. I love the subtleness of that, the subtlety of that, and like, that's what he would do.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we should probably mention, because we said it at the start of the show, premiere podcast of shameless product placement. There's a ridiculous amount of product placement in this film.
So much.
Like, just so much. But I don't think, like, sometimes product placement is really obvious and out of place. This movie did it in a way that it didn't feel contrived.
Mm-mm.
Because the big one was when Johnny leaves the X Games. Like, you walk outside and there must be like 30 posters out there.
Yeah. It's Burger King ad.
And it's the X Games. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the other one was anytime a movie takes place in New York, I'm pretty sure they show a shot of Times Square just to pay for the movie, because there's a ton of ads in there as well.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel forced, but it was very noticeable. And I'm pretty sure Jiffy Pop even. Do we see the product of that?
Yeah, you see it zooms in and he rips off the top of the package, so that
so you do see it.
There's corn.
I mean, we're talking about it now.
Yeah, there's
so
cornflakes.
I guess.
It's like the Olympics, cornflakes right before the napkins that he sets on fire and then tries to put, which is great. It's like, put out that fire, and he hits it and it lights up again, which is
yeah.
Of course, that's what's gonna happen. So good. Yeah, no, that's just a lot of fun. I think, if anything, that the product placement grounds the movie, makes it feel almost more realistic, because it does. Like, yes, at the X Games, I would expect to see that. If I saw a bunch of generic product placement, I'd been like, that's fake.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, if we were not watching this movie with a critical eye, I don't think I would have noticed or cared. But, we watch it with a critical eye, so we're gonna mention it. Speaking of something that grounds the movie, something that I think modern superhero movies are lacking a little bit is, rarely, I feel like, does it ever show the regular everyday people responding to how they feel about the superheroes.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man does this quite a bit, like the bridge scene in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, where they're on Spider-Man's side and they're like chucking stuff at Norman, or at the Green Goblin,
Yep.
to kind of protect Spider-Man. And then we have the whole element with like J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man, where Spider-Man has to like balance his responsibilities with pleasing New York, and we get that again in this movie on the bridge. And then we also see like that guy trying to get into his apartment or her hotel room as the pool breaks.
Yes. At the end there,
And it's like, and you don't see that in superhero movies as much anymore. You don't see the average guy trying to like get out of the way for collateral damage. I guess you do in Avengers a little bit, and both Avengers movies, Age of Ultron as well. I don't know. I just feel like that's forgotten a little bit. Like seeing it through the lens of this is how regular people on the street feel. Because a lot of times there are fights. A good example would be Spider-Man: No Way Home, when Spider-Man and again Green Goblin are duking it out through that apartment building.
Yep.
And there's like no one living in that apartment building.
Yeah.
It just gets demolished, and it's like we're all the people. I guess I want to see more of that. It would kind of raise the stakes for a lot of heroes too. If like, okay, I now have to protect these people while fighting this villain. But more and more, I feel like the sets are pretty empty of extras.
Yeah, that's a good take. That was an enjoyable scene, watching that guy just, oh shoot, let me get into my room as quick as I can.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Anything else before we talk more about characters? I mean, I really like the action figure, especially because the voice is all wrong. That's just kind of fun.
It's clobbering,
and it's also an organic way to get its clobbering time in there, which we also get an actual one, which is just fun.
Yeah, they did a good job of like they fit in a lot of, I guess what are they called? Their classic lines.
Yeah.
Because we also got Flame On, which is great.
Yeah. Flame On, kid. Oh, yeah. We talked a lot about just how well the characters are drawn, the casting, and like Ioan Gruffudd, who plays Reed Richards, I think he's good for me. He will always be Reed Richards. Like he really balances like nerdy, but also he has character growth in this, and it's great. And I wish like that guy had a bigger career. I think he's really, really solid in this.
Yeah. I also feel like he would like they could almost recast him in the MCU instead of Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
And it would have been totally fine. Like Reed Richards can be an older dude. He doesn't have to be, late 30s.
Yeah.
Or however old that guy is in this film.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of...
I almost feel that about like all of these characters. You could just recast not Johnny Storm, obviously, but
I mean, we kind of did, but yeah.
You could...
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah, dead. We got him again in Deadpool.
Not my favorite Chris, but yeah. And
you have no idea what he was doing to the budget, Craig.
Exactly. No, I agree. We could have easily dropped them in. I mean, I used to really wish that they would have done that, especially when you started talking about the reality stone and everything with like, you could have easily, had they chosen to, the MCU could have easily just incorporated both the X-Men and this, and just, there's a cross rip and everything is in the same universe now and with the same cast. You could have done it had they chosen to do that, but they did not. So, alas.
You know what is a very disappointing casting is Jim Halpert. What's that actor's name?
Oh man, you made me. I stopped right now.
Jim. What? Krasinski.
Yeah, John Krasinski. That he plays Mr. Fantastic for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that
he would have been a great. Yes.
I know that was like that was a fan cast for like years.
Yeah.
I remember like everyone's like cast him. Did not do a good job. Nope.
Really?
Did not like
you didn't
that
like him as
at
well?
all.
I think given the right script, I think he would have been a really good Reed Richards. I could see him in the role long term.
I don't know. He didn't fit it for me. I think in The Office he was kind of like this tall, lerpy, skinny guy that could have pulled off the nerd, but he's kind of like buffed up recently, and I just don't think he looked like it. And I mean, this isn't his fault, but for the smartest guy in the world, he did a lot of really stupid stuff in that movie.
No, yeah, that movie's got lots of problems. But did you watch the Jack Ryan show on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
You didn't care for that. Okay, we'll move on.
I didn't hate it.
Yeah,
it was fine.
It's fine. Okay. So some other things I do like about this movie, though. I've always liked Kerry Washington, and she has a very small role in this as Alicia Masters, which I freaking love the fact that she's a sculptor in the comics, and that she's the one that Ben ends up with. Like, that's just poetic and beautiful. But like, she was not a very big. She'd been a bit part, hadn't really started anything yet. But in a very small role in this film, she really leaves a mark. Like, she's very memorable, very charismatic, and very likable in this film.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, she's a great actress.
Let's see. Julian McMahon is the one we've been talking trash about for Victor Von Doom, and he's a fine actor. I just think like you probably, I like his Victor. I think maybe I like his Victor. I don't like his Doctor Doom. Maybe that's what it is. His Victor's fine.
It's fine. I don't know if it's good. What else is he in? Maybe I want to redeem him because I have been trash talking him.
Yeah, see, I think he was on Nip Tuck, which I never watched. And I know he was on
a lot of
Charmed,
a lot of TV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a thing. I mean, Michael Chiklis was on TV too. I think there was a lot. Again, same Jessica Alba. There was a lot of casting television actors. Jennifer Garner from the last movie that we did. Probably budget wise. You know, you're not casting big name movie stars. I know there's some of that. And there's also some of we're not casting stars who are necessarily typecast, so it's a little easier to imagine them in these roles.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at his film career and I don't see anything that I would know him from.
Yeah.
He wasn't terrible. He was I don't know.
It's just his
I
Doom
think
wasn't
Doom is
enough.
a really hard character. Yeah.
Stan,
you know what we haven't done on this podcast yet? Is we haven't crapped on the is it 2015? The 2015 Fantastic Four?
Four Stick? Yeah, maybe sometime.
Yeah.
We should do a live watch on that one though.
Some other.
Because I don't want to watch it more than once.
I don't want to watch it ever.
So Stan Lee's in this movie in a speaking role.
Yes.
As a character called
first
Willie Lumpkin.
Speaking cameo?
Yeah, I think it is. And and it's funny, like if you look up Willie Lumpkin, if you Google him, like he looks like Stan Lee. It's pretty great.
Who is Willie Lumpkin?
He's a mailman that shows up in the Fantastic Four comics.
Oh, he's an actual
he's an actual comic character. They didn't make him for this movie.
He does look like
Isn't
Stan
that crazy?
Lee.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, love it.
Any of our listeners, go give that guy a Google. That's funny.
Probably worth a Google.
Worth a Google.
Hero's Journey. Yes, it's a hero's journey for everybody. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge one, but it is an origin story, and so you're getting aspects of a lot of those things. I mean, Reed has a transformation where he is kind of thrust into this role and has to take a leadership role, and they said it beautifully in the commentary how you have this guy who's basically made out of rubber who has to grow a spine, which I thought was a great metaphor. I mean, I'm not a professional Hollywood writer, and so I will just tip my cap to those guys. I mean, like that. What a great line. That's true.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny has to grow up. I mean, Sue doesn't really change, I don't think.
No.
Ben doesn't really change that much. I mean, there's kind of this acceptance. I mean, we see this thing where his whole thing is like, I'm going to get you back to, you know, be normal again. And then he ultimately opts to become the Thing again. So that's kind of an interesting beat.
And then Johnny grows a heart.
Doom is just, you know, an exaggerated version of his earlier version, right?
Yeah.
The mask is his true face or whatever.
Yeah, so I think most of the change would probably be Reed.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. So as far as world building goes, this is a thing that we keep using this phrase missed opportunity. And I don't know if it's a missed opportunity or if it's just choices that because ultimately we do get the MCU, we get all this connected stuff. But there's so many we almost gave you this. Like, and if you watch the extended edition or there's a deleted scene, it's really easy to find. So the scene where, you know, Reed says, you know, I thought you wanted to be a stronger man. And he makes the big old square jaw in the extended edition. Like, it's Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like, they're in the same universe. Why do you not give this that? Like, you go to, again, we talked about this with Elektra. Why do you film the Ben Affleck cameo, pay the man, and then not use it?
Yeah.
Like, it's a 3-second thing.
I wonder what decision was made to be like, audiences aren't ready for this, or, you know, why not? Like, who in the audience would have been like, nuh-uh, that doesn't work.
It's the same studio. I mean, there was already, we talked about this before, where Hugh Jackman was going to show up in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, and that didn't quite happen for silly reasons like costumes and schedule, just random scheduling things. Like they'd worked out the rights. They even in this movie, they already have the rights. 20th Century Fox has the X-Men and has Fantastic Four. They literally go to the trouble of filming it, and they don't include it.
I wonder, like today, MCU movies, superhero movies have like a cult following. I wonder if maybe they thought not enough of the audience would understand the carryover, but I don't know. Then why film it? Why film it and then I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't know.
They didn't mention that in the commentary at all.
I don't remember what the line was, what the reasoning was. Because there was a couple things where there was like, I might have shown up in like the European version. I don't know. I think some of this is DVD is fairly new, and so that's a thing. Sometimes it looks like they were saving stuff for the DVD, and they're doing like what they used to call double dips on DVD, where you get the bare bones release, and then like 6 months later they'd make you buy it again, and you'd get like the second disc that had the commentary and the deleted scenes and all that stuff. Yeah,
they knew their audience. You were that guy.
I was
Craig.
that guy.
You were that guy to buy.
It's like you got to learn
the multiple DVDs.
Like Peter Jackson did it too. It was like, nope. Would you like 30 more minutes of your movie incorporated and looks beautiful? Would you like that in a brand new collector case? Dang it, I already bought this. Yeah, you're buying it again, sucker.
You'll buy it again.
But
I do think this movie. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the big question that we always ask of this is like, how does this fit in the overall universe? And so that's where I was going to go. Like,
yeah.
How does this fit? Is it weird at this point that we're like in New York and we're like, hey, what about that spider guy?
This is not big stakes. Like this is not MCU world-ending stakes. So no, I don't think so. I think this could still fit in the same X-Men, Daredevil, Spider-Man world. Of all these pre-MCU movies we've done, I think tonally, Punisher is probably the one that stands out the most, but could still fit. But I think this was also probably the first movie that could, if we updated a couple of the CGI scenes, could fit in the MCU pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like this seems like we are now at the stage of like MCU levels of characterization and MCU levels of campy comedy. Like don't let the moment land just yet. We're going to like back you up from anything too emotional with humor.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It feels very MCU.
It does absolutely, totally feel like an MCU. Like, and I think I love what you said about like the personal, like the smaller stakes. Like I think of it like in terms of like Ant-Man, kind of like it's self-contained in a way where I don't need to have any connections to anything else. It totally works. It's not a world-ending. There's nothing world-ending about this. It's really a very personal battle against Victor. That's a good point.
Yeah, Doctor Doom's not doing anything. Like he doesn't have any grand plans to take over the world or destroy the world. Like he just kind of wants to get revenge on those 4 people.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't, we have,
I mean, it's going to change in the next one with Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
But
we have to wait for that. But yeah, I think that's a good point. That and the timeline is not very long on this movie either. Like it happens over a couple of weeks at most.
Yeah.
So it's not a big sprawling thing where you'd have to have, the X-Men are going to have to get involved or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Well, final thoughts on Fantastic Four.
Fantastic. It was great. I'm actually going back, like looking at reviews of people at the time, and I was surprised with how many people did not like this movie.
Yeah.
But again, like you said at the start of the show, you got to like consider it in context of what was coming out at the time, and we got some fantastic movies at the time. I mean, like Batman Begins. That's one of the better superhero movies even today.
Yeah.
But context of our time, this fits right in. I think it's almost perfectly cast with everyone. Great acting, great character building, great use of just the time given. Like it's not that long of a movie, but they get quite a bit done and it doesn't feel rushed.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. And I honestly don't think they're going to live up to Ben Grimm's The Thing. I don't think you can top that role. He did really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think context definitely matters. I mean, this is July. It's like after Fourth of July. We got July 8th is when it was released in the U.S. And the previous Marvel movie that we just talked about, I mean, that was Elektra in January. So you got 6 months of, and that was pretty mediocre. We're kind of burnt out on comic book movies from Marvel going in, right? And then you got like 6 weeks before this, you got Batman Begins, and you got Star Wars, and you got Harry Potter, and it's like this is going to get maybe lost in the shuffle a little bit with that kind of stuff, but. Yeah, I think this movie absolutely holds up. I love what you said about you really could drop this into the MCU pretty solidly, like first couple phases. I feel like the sense of humor is there, the characterization is super strong. Yeah, I really do like this movie. I think it holds up really well. The CGI is really just the one thing for me that, maybe a couple of references here, like we talked about, like digital camera or whatever, but really, I think it holds up really, really well, and it's a fun movie.
Little bit of a missed opportunity, I feel, because when you have the multiverse of madness, you could pull anything in.
Yep.
At that point. Once MCU does multiverse stuff, and they didn't really pull it in. I mean, Deadpool did eventually pull it in to hilarious effect, like
yeah,
well done, Ryan Reynolds. That scene where you thought it was Captain America, and it turned out to be Johnny Storm. Oh my, I
was excited.
Maybe other people saw that coming. I 100% did not see that coming. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I was very excited about that when that happened. I remember seeing, like, this movie went on sale, like the digital version went on sale like a couple months before, as did Daredevil and Elektra, and so I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's going to come into play later, that they're selling these movies right now. Like, maybe that's going to be a thing people are going to want to revisit. So...
You are probably one of half a dozen people in the world that would pay attention to that sort of thing. So I don't think anyone
I wasn't
else
100% surprised.
They're reselling this movie.
I was very happy when it was Johnny Storm. That was pretty great.
Yeah.
So on that note, we're going to get out of here, and we just want to say thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe and review us. We'd love those 5-star reviews on iTunes or Spotify. And our next episode will be a review of X-Men: The Last Stand. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from X-Men: The Last Stand, and we'll share it on the next episode.